Good morning, friends, and welcome to this act of worship. I am sure you have said your good mornings, greeted each other, told us where you are joining us from. But it is a new day, a new beginning, opportunities for so much today. And today we come to worship the God of love. We join together from the northeast and from beyond, from this country and from abroad. Brothers and sisters, we are one body. We belong with each other and we belong with God. And together as one body, we come to worship our God and give our thanks to God. Please, we're going to use, as usual, our comments below as part of our prayers of thanksgiving, prayers of intercession, prayers of confession. Whatever we write, it goes up to God in prayer. So in a moment, we're going to worship God in song as we give thanks and bless God for who God is and for what God has done for us and continues to do for us. As we do so, please write below your thanks to God, because God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit is worthy of all our praise and worship. So shall we join our voices together if we feel like singing, or just listen as others sing on our behalf? Let us join our voices as we worship God and we sing one of my new favorite hymns. Sing of the Lord's goodness. Let's worship God together.
Sing of the Lord's goodness, Father of all wisdom, come to him and bless his name. Mercy he has shown us, his love is forever, faithful to the end of days. Come then, all you nations, sing of your Lord's goodness, melodies of praise and thanks to God. Ring out the Lord's glory, praise him with your music, worship him and bless his name. Power he has wielded, honor is his garment, risen from the snares of death. His word he has spoken, one bread he has broken, new life he now gives to all. Come then, all you nations, sing of your Lord's goodness, melodies of praise and thanks to God. Ring out the Lord's glory, praise him with your music, worship him and bless his name. Courage in our darkness, comfort in our sorrow, Spirit of our God Most High. Solace for the weary, pardon for the sinner, splendor of the living God. Come then, all you nations, sing of your Lord's goodness, melodies of praise and thanks to God. Ring out the Lord's glory, praise him with your music, worship him and bless his name. Praise him with your singing, praise him with the trumpet, praise God with the lute and harp. Praise him with the cymbals, praise him with your dancing, praise God till the end of days. Come then, all you nations, sing of your Lord's goodness, melodies of praise and thanks to God. Ring out the Lord's glory, praise him with your music, worship him and bless his name.
I have a story to tell you. The story of two women. One young, the other old. This woman represents Naomi. Born in Bethlehem, the house of bread, yet lived with her family in a time of no bread. A courageous woman, fighting for her family, leaving the place she knows so well, to go to a foreign land to find food for her family. a woman full of hope. This woman represents Ruth, a Moabite, a young woman. She fell in love and married Naomi's son, full of joy and hope. As she marries her husband, she lives in his home. She lives with her mother-in-law, Naomi. Naomi. She no longer stands up straight. She's carrying a very heavy burden. She has lost her husband and children. The light has been extinguished from her eyes. No more hope for her. Ruth. She's also hurting. All hopes of a family of her own gone with her husband. The house that was full of noise and chatter is quiet now. And then there is this moment, a moment of heavy emotions. Naomi, empty of everything, fallen to the ground, tells her daughters-in-law, for she had two, to go back to their homes. There is still hope for them. They can remarry. They can still have children. Take your time to look at the picture. Look at Ruth, clinging on to Naomi. Why cling to an old woman whose soul is so empty? What can be gained by it? Why not let her go and make a better life for yourself? Ruth clings onto Naomi. And then we hear the words, "Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried." Ruth never lets go. And now we have two women, two widows traveling to Bethlehem, the house of bread. What can Bethlehem offer them? What does Bethlehem offer them? They come as widows to a crowded city, to men's praising stares and women's pity. They are on their own, but they are together. Two travelers whose friendship is stronger than fear, stronger than hunger. They walk together, hands joined, Ruth and Naomi. Dear friends, every single day I'm finding more and more that God's story is told through our stories. And God's story is told through the story of Ruth. As you read through the book, it's only 4 chapters. I invite you to read it. God seems absent and hidden. And yet, as you read it, you find that God is active in human life. As you open one page after the other, you see how God's character jumps out of the pages of the story of Ruth. So I wonder what God is showing us today as we consider this child of his, Ruth. With every story, context is so important. No stories, no lives are lived in a vacuum. If we choose to miss the context and the circumstances, we miss out on the power of the story, we miss out on the challenge the story has for us. If we choose not to understand the context, we run the risk of making judgments based on appearances. And that's not something you and I want to do. When we choose to understand context, we are saying we are willing to listen to the other. We are willing to understand what they are, what makes them tick, and why they act and behave and believe in the way they do. So what is the context of the story of Ruth? Dear friends, it breaks my heart to find out that context. In the very beginning, we meet Ruth and Naomi as poor widows. So her context is a context of poverty. But as a widow, there was no support in place for both women. As we meet them, we meet an unfair system, a system that fails to look after its poor. So we have poverty. Widows in that culture were the least in the society. Nobody to look after them, nobody to care for them. A stigma to their status. So we have poverty. We have a widow. And then they both live in a patriarchal culture. In a culture where women are not heard or listened to or valued. And to top that up, they are both foreigners at some point in their lives. Naomi has to leave her home because there is no food for her family, there is fear of starvation, and she moves to another country in hope of a better life. We're coming to the end of Refugee Week, as David reminded us last week. Refugees leave their home in search of a better life. They leave the fear of not being able to live where they were. Naomi becomes a foreigner out of desperation. And then Ruth becomes a foreigner out of choice, but we will look at that in a moment. It gets even worse. Because as Ruth goes with Naomi back to her homeland, Ezra and Nehemiah have started to purify Israel with the restoration of Jerusalem by casting out foreign wives and their children. And in Deuteronomy 23 we read, no Edomites and Moabites can be part of the assembly of the Lord. The Moabite faces all of that. What a context. What circumstances. This is the story of those on the margins and how God is at work in the most human and earthly experiences. But what does it mean to be on the margins, to be marginalized? Last week, Stephen came and shared some of his story with us. How it felt to be a black person in a white society. We can only speak from our own stories. And today I will share something of mine with you, because Ruth's story resonates a little bit with my story. See, I grew up in a patriarchal society. I became a follower of Jesus in a patriarchal society. And also, I was part of a patriarchal church. I remember when I first became a follower of Jesus, I just wanted to tell everybody about the love of God for them. And I was involved in reaching out. I started children's groups, I was part of youth group, I was part of Bible studies, women's groups. I spoke in open air and shared the good news with many. And yet, even though I was able and allowed to do all these things, I was not allowed to stand up in front of my home church and preach to them, because I was a woman. Entrusted with so many other things, but I was not worthy to share the love of God with my brothers and sisters. And about 2 years ago, I went back to my home church and I picked up a notice sheet. And they had listed all the activities that took part throughout the week and who led those activities. And there were men's names and women's names. And next, in front of the men's names, there was the word pastor. But in front of the women's name, there was no pastor. And as you read, women could only lead children's work or women's groups. And my heart sank. It broke my heart. And I didn't say anything there. Should I say something? Should I have said something? What is the story of Ruth calling me to? And then I became a foreigner when I moved with my family to Greece. And listen to me, I have got some beautiful friends in Greece whom I love. But when I first arrived, there was this feeling of division of the Greeks and the Albanians. And I worked in a restaurant as a young girl, and every day there was this older couple that came to eat, and they had come on holiday. And we chatted, short times, we chatted together. And it was nice, and there was kindness, and there was care. And I remember this older lady saying to me, "Oh, you are so lovely. I would love you to be the wife of my grandson." Now, that wasn't the truth, but that's how they expressed when they liked you, okay? Oh, that wasn't going to happen. There was no arranged marriages in the question. And then one day, as we were talking, it came out that I was Albanian. And straight away, she said, "Oh no, I cannot have an Albanian marry my grandson." I was shocked at what she said, and I went on to serve at the other tables. She was making judgments outside of context. She was affected by her culture and her background. And then the next day she came with tears in her eyes, and she asked that I forgive her because of her reaction. She had got to know me, and she had never thought there were barriers and divisions between us until she found out. And that woman was changed because of that encounter. She repented. She moved on into a new way. Her encounter with me changed her, but also changed me. Last week, we asked for forgiveness. And we all fail to notice people on the margins or make assumptions about their lives. We all have our stories to tell. People on the margins are many. But let's go back to Ruth. Because even though Ruth has experienced such unfair systems and life, Ruth surprises us and teaches us a lot. Ruth was not always a foreigner. She had her own home, her own country. And just like the Jewish people didn't like the Moabites didn't like the Jewish people. And yet when Naomi and her family came, they were welcomed by Ruth. The fact that Ruth marries one of Naomi's sons shows us that Ruth values all life. She didn't marry him for his riches, for he was poor. She married him because she loved him. Because she recognized that all humans are equal and are of value and of worth because they are made by God. She surprises us some more. I mean, when her husband dies, her heart is broken. She has lost all the hopes and the dreams of a family with him. She's a broken woman. She's got nothing to give. Then she looks at Naomi. Even though Ruth is on the margins, Naomi is even more so. Naomi has lost everything. And Ruth offers her hospitality. My friends, when we talk of hospitality, we talk of tangible things, of giving food or money or shelter to someone that needs it. Ruth had no food. Ruth had no shelter. All she had was herself, broken as she was. And that's what she offered to Naomi. She offered herself to Naomi. And that's risky hospitality. Consider her hospitality for a moment. She leaves her comfort zone, all that she has known, to go to another place. She'll be facing language barriers. She'll be facing social barriers. She'll be facing religious barriers. She'll be an outsider. She'll remain Ruth the Moabite. That's how costly her hospitality is. She leaves the comfort to stand with another in their predicament. Her hospitality gives Naomi wings and fills her with joy. Her hospitality gives hope to Naomi as these two women are bound by love. When I first married Mick, I had my non-European passport and Mick had his British passport. And whenever we traveled abroad and got to airports, we had to be separated. He had to go in the line for European Union nationals and United Kingdom nationals, and I had to go on the other line. We struggled with it. And Mick wanted to stand with me in my line, and we asked the officials to do so, and sometimes they allowed us, sometimes they didn't. But even when they didn't, Mick waited on the other side, just by the kiosk of the official, for me to come out. He stood with me, for me, and by me. And that is what Ruth did for Naomi. So the question for us today is, who needs us to stand with them, for them, and by them? Where is God directing our sight, our eyes today? We're going to have a moment of prayer, but this is going to be a silent prayer, if you like. There will be some words on the screen, and I invite you to write initials of people that need somebody to stand by them, initials of people on the margins, whatever that reason is. Maybe groups of people that are left on the margins for far too long. Maybe we continue to pray for understanding better the plight of Black Lives Matter, the plight of refugees, the plight of the poor. Maybe we want to sit in silence and allow God to speak to us. At the end of that time, we're going to say the Lord's Prayer. But I'm going to show a video of people from different parts of the world praying that prayer first. And then when they pray it the second time, we join our voices with them.
உம்முடைய ராஜ்யம் வருவதாக. உம்முடைய சித்தம் பரலோகத்தில் செய்யப்படுவது போல
assim na terra como nos céus. O pão nosso de cada dia nos dai hoje.
Befalna fajetona, aż tu si wene falim fajtorotan.
I nie wódź nas na pokuszenie,
ma liberaci dal male.
Canis eiddo ti yw y deyrnas, a'r nerth, a'r gogoniant, yn oes oesoedd.
Amen.
Padre
Ojcze
Ojcze
nasz,
nasz, który jest w niebie,
uświęć się
imię Twoje. Przyjdź Królestwo Twoje, bądź wola Twoja, jak w niebie, tak i w ziemi. Chleba naszego powszedniego daj nam dzisiaj i odpuść nam nasze winy, jako i my odpuszczamy naszym winowajcom. I nie wódź nas na pokuszenie, ale zbaw nas od złego. W imieniu Jezusa Chrystusa. Amen.
sed se jotia estum breteria vefucia de labdia. Ne jete ti jetve. Amen.
Amen. As part of our prayers, shall we sing or listen to the next hymn? We cannot measure how you heal.
We cannot measure how you heal us every sorrow's breath, yet we believe your grace responds where faith and doubt unite to care. Your hands so bloody on the
we find God's story and the story of people. And in Ruth's story, God also surprises us. In this story, God is not speaking through the burning bush, or parting a sea, or providing manna from heaven, or water from the rock. We encounter God in this story in the faithfulness of ordinary human beings. Ruth and Naomi show us the heart of God. And the heart of God is for the marginalized. This doesn't mean to say that God's heart is not for all people, for it is. But in this story, because it is important to these people, God hears the plight of women in a man's world. God hears the plight of the poor in a society that does not care for its poor. God hears the plight of foreigners in a world where the walls keep going up and up. God is concerned with all people. But in our story, Ruth and Naomi are important. The most important, in fact, in that moment. God continues to surprise us by showing us God's welcome of the stranger and the power the encounters with strangers have. God surprises us. Ruth becomes the beloved great-grandmother of King David. We know the story of King David. We know how important the line of King David is for all humanity. Ruth, the Moabite, who was not allowed to be in the assembly of the Lord, is now in the line of the Redeemer. She is part of the history of the love of God. God surprises us. Love always wins. This is the story of the margins, but the love, my dear friends, always wins and brings light in the darkest of places. So what is it we are to do and be today and in the days to come? I shared with you my stories, but I know that I am privileged. I am white, I have food, I have shelter, I have freedom to travel wherever I want to. And I think most of us are privileged. So how do we encounter the other? How do we stand by and for and with the other? How do we become the voice of the voiceless? How do we change history? What legacy do we leave our children? How can the world see the heart of God as seen in the story of Ruth and Naomi? What are we, as followers of Jesus, meant to be and do? Questions for all of us to reflect. But let's remember that God didn't make us to just survive. God made us, you, me, the refugee, the black, the poor, the white, to thrive, to live to our full potential. So that's my prayer. My prayer is that we as a church thrive, we as individuals thrive, that we enable people, whether we know them or not, to thrive. We create a loving world. So I invite us to join our voices as we sing our last hymn, song Thrive by Casting Crowns. Amen. Well, we come to the end of our time of worship just now. But we hold what God has spoken to us in our hearts. And we remember that God, the God of love, is always with us. And whatever our plight, our need, our struggle, our burden, God knows it. And God carries it with us and for us. We meet again next Sunday morning at 10:30 as John leads us. We've got other times when we meet together in reflection, in Bible study, in prayer. So please, if you want to be part of one of those things, ask one of us, send a message to this page, and we will link you with somebody else. If you have any questions, just contact us. But let's together share in word and action the love of God with all, now and always. And dear brothers and sisters, may the blessing of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen.